All right, welcome back. Of course, we are still on the president's, Democracy Day broadcast. And of course, we're not alone to talk about this. We have Nelson Ekujimi right here in the studio with us. Good morning, Nelson.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, it was quite an interesting one here, and this is President Bola Tinubu's first address to the nation after, of course, the inaugural address. And there were key pointers that were mentioned in his address. He talked about the struggle of, from 1993, that is the MK Abiola elections, and how it was a well fought for journey. Which is, of course, what Nigerians are benefiting from now. But I do know that you were part of the Nadeko movement, weren't you? Can you share a little bit of your experience as brief as possible? Let's see how we are actually thriving on that struggle now.
Well, thank you very much.
Before you respond, let's also welcome Barrister Eze Eluche, who's joining us virtually. Good morning to you, Barrister.
For having me virtually, yes.
All right,
thank you very much. All right. Go ahead.
Well, the June 12, 1993 presidential election, by all standards, was one of the freest and fairest in Nigeria's election history. That was a day that Nigerians, went to the polls devoid of, tribal and ethnic sentiments, to cast their vote for a candidate of their choice. We should also remember that Alhaji MK Abiola or Chief MK Abiola, whatever name we want to call him, a business mogul, a politician, a philanthropist, a humanist, a religious man, had a Muslim vice presidential candidate in Alhaji Bagbaga and Akingibe. They were both of the SDP. Then on the opposite side, because then we ran a two-party system under former military dictator Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida. And prior to that election, when Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida came into office in 1985, he came in 1985 after on sitting military head of state, General Muhammadu Buhari, in August. He promised, terminating military rule. But along the line, military dictator Babangida kept on shifting the goalpost at every point in time. And, as a member of the civil society group, Nigerians started becoming, wary that, come on, what is this man taking us for? Former military dictator Babangida actually began to take Nigerians for a ride. Then news began to filter him that the man was, angling to become a civilian president, transmuting. And if we recollect, he described his administration, he renamed his office as president instead of because we all know that to become a president, you have to be elected. But here was a military dictator who shot his way into power, taking on the description or the appellation of his military president. And he so traumatized Nigerians with that democratic journey that democratic journey he supervised has been described as the most expensive democratic, exercise in human history.
All right, let me cut you off a little bit because you said your time is very limited. So I think it is on this premise that we have President Bola Tinubu riding on. The whole renewed hope, the same pattern to where he had a Muslim deputy is basically what he's riding on. Now, let's look at his speech because there were key issues that he pointed out, which we were expecting him to actually talk about. The subsidy removal, the pains of the subsidy removal, that one, and of course the case at the Election Petition Tribunal. So he said he knows it is painful. Let me quote him. "Painfully, I have asked you, my compatriots, to sacrifice a little more for the survival of our country. For your trust and belief in us, I assure you that your sacrifice shall not be in vain." Now, Nigerians were not actually opposing the subsidy removal. The pain here for Nigerians was that based on what they had gone through, you understand, before he came on board, they thought there would be a little respite before that subsidy removal comes on board. But when that did not happen, and he said subsidy removal was gone immediately, then pump price was also increased. It was, about 300%. So that's where the pain is. Do you think this speech is enough to tackle or soothe the disgruntled of some Nigerians?
Well, the truth of the matter is that President Bola Tinubu inherited a policy that has been on the front burner of public discourse even before the administration he took over the reins of power from. And the truth of the matter is that this speech is a policy direction of where the administration is going. And also, don't forget that, the former president, President Muhammadu Buhari administration had, gone ahead to, try to provide succor for Nigerians in view of the expected pains that the subsidy removal will bring. And that was why the World Bank was going to assess Nigeria a loan of $800 billion. But sadly, Nigerians like playing to the gallery. They like grandstanding. And, some persons went on air misleading and inciting the people as if the World Bank was going to take the 800 billion naira and give it to President Muhammadu Buhari in cash, forgetting that the World Bank is an international institution. And that as an international institution, the World Bank has standards, has procedures, and even government has standards and procedures of assessing loans. And before President Muhammadu Buhari went out of office, the process had been set in motion for Nigeria to assess that loan of 800 billion naira, even though people made it seem as if, the government had other ulterior motive, despite the fact that that government had shown enough sincerity in its affairs, whether people like it or not. A lot of us believe and we rely only on facts. We don't run with emotions like a lot of people do.
All right.
Bryce, are you with us?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you very
All
much.
right, great. Now, we heard the president's speech and the remark that he made concerning
Yes, I'm
the
very much with
removal
you.
of
Thank you.
subsidy. And he did say that palliative measures will be put in place. He says a whole lot of other things that are palliative measures. But let's look at it. It's going on 2 weeks now since the May 29 announcement and subsequent hike in price of fuel, and Nigerians have had to struggle through it with fears that it might even go up. Palliative measures have not been put in place just yet. What do you make of this? Is this enough assurance that Nigerians should sit back and wait, continue to endure while we wait for government to put together whatever palliative measure they have in mind? What do you make of this?
Generally, that June 12th broadcast by Mr. Tinubu was the most unfortunate broadcast.
Most unfortunate,
Flows
you
in
say?
line with his yes, I am saying most unfortunate, yes, because it flows in line with his countenance that it is my turn. You see that audacity to talk down to people as he wills. He does not give a damn what you feel. He just feels this must be so because it is best for you. That is not what democracy is all about. We agree there has been the clamor that subsidy should be removed, but there has also been the fact known to everybody that subsidy is a fraud. If Mr. Tinubu had focused his energies to tackle the issue of fraud, for instance, the number of liters of fuel Nigeria is claiming to pay subsidy on has been proved to be impossible. In fact, it's more than 200% above what we consume in this country. Rather than focus on addressing the fraud in the so-called subsidy, Mr. President proceeds to remove the subsidy, foist hardship on people, and then turns around and says, you must bear it. Come on. Is that what democracy is all about? Like you've said from the onset, democracy is all about popular participation. Democracy is not a day that you went out and people said you voted and somebody was made your president, does not mean you have democracy. So long as there is no popular participation in governance, there cannot be said to be democracy. And that was what I saw filtering through Mr. Tinubu's speech. It was arrogant. It was not feeling the pulse of the people. In fact, there was one of the statements he made that those who do not agree or who do not agree to the victory of others do not deserve victory do not deserve to have the joy of victory when they triumph. That was a direct threat, in my own opinion, because Mr. President was now saying, okay, if you did not celebrate me, when it's your turn, you should not deserve victory. And that was a clear threat. So when you look at the totality of his statement, there is that arrogance which is still part of this emilocon, that it is my own turn and nobody can do anything about it. I don't think that is what Nigerians deserve at this stage, when we have been crying that, look, the last regime dealt.
But Barrister Eze, he complimented that statement by saying, above all, those who disagree with the outcome of the decisions, or rather of the elections, are taking full advantage of the constitutional provisions to seek redress in court. And of course, he complimented the essence of our democracy.
Well, I mean, he knows what he's talking about, because this is a man who has been in political sphere for quite a long time. He knows that in fact, the way the system is going on makes a total rubbish of the entire court process.
Wow.
If there was a court process and people are looking onto it, yes. No, why I'm saying this is this: there have been seismic changes going on, even announced by this current president. So what I'm trying to say is that yes, his reference to courts was like, okay, the court is good, they keep on going there, we are doing what we need to do. And that is actually contemptuous of the court. Because if there was a court going on, then there are some of these changes.
Barrister, sorry, let me just pause you there. Nelson is shaking his head in disbelief, I think.
How do you respond to what he said?
What I will respond to him is that I will advise any watcher of this program to go and read that speech. And I want to quote that speech.
Okay, go ahead.
The man on the other side of the valley is being clever by half. This is what the man said. This is what President Bola Tinubu said. He said, those, line 13, those who cannot endure and accept the pain of defeat in elections do not deserve the joy of victory. It's just like when you are going to play a football match and you are like, is either I win.
Mr. Ewujimi, sorry. You left
is either I win or the heaven.
You left the last part of that statement.
Or the heaven falls.
Wait, Barrister, let him respond.
It's not proper. In every contest, election should be a contest. It should not be a do or die affair. It should not be a religious war. So anybody who does not believe that in going for this election is either of two, or in playing this football match is either of two decisions that will affect me. Is either I emerge as a loser or I emerge as a winner. And if I emerge as a loser, if there's a window to seek redress, I should exploit. And that was exactly what President Tinubu. Go and read it. I don't need to go and read line 13. You can read it out. I've just taken it from my phone. What did he say? He said, if you cannot endure the pain of defeat, then you don't deserve to savour the joy of victory.
All right, so let's. But we also do know that he said something. He said something in lines.
You left one phrase. You left one phrase in that statement.
What's the phrase? What's the phrase, Barrister?
What he said actually was those who cannot endure and accept. Yes, the phrase is. Let me read the full sentence. Those who cannot endure and accept the pain of defeat in elections do not deserve the joy of victory when it is their turn to triumph. When it is their turn to triumph. That was the phrase he left.
In simple English.
That phrase is very critical. So that phrase.
What's wrong with that phrase?
Are you having difficulty with understanding English?
No, I think you are being disrespectful, Mr. I don't know what your name is.
Let's dive. His name is Barrister Eze Eluche. We're trying to objectively dissect the issues. Now, Barrister Eze, here is the scenario. In the president's speech, you mentioned that the president's speech was arrogant. It reeked of arrogancy. Would you say it was arrogance, or possibly there were other key pointers you expected him to have addressed, which he did not address?
No, I mean, I would have expected him to apologize to Nigerians for the hardships caused by this subsidy, and for the
he actually did.
Shambolic, and for the please let me land, and for the way this government has managed for the past weeks as if in total contempt of what the courts are doing. Because if the courts are there, people have not asked themselves what happens if the court goes the other way. I mean, and we cannot be going on as if there was no court process going on. That is what I'm saying. If the court goes the other way, or is there a presumption that whatever happens, this court is bound to rule one direction? And if that is the case, then it's a problematic situation.
But he also did say something.
My reference
he
was
also
yeah.
Sorry, please. Sorry, please. Let me just. He also did say something. He says, "If you lose today, you can win tomorrow." You know, isn't that throwing it open? Okay, look, it's a democracy, and if you have tried today and you lost, you can try again tomorrow, and you may just win tomorrow.
No. What he says is they do not deserve the joy of victory when it is their turn to triumph. I mean, I don't know if you are missing that point.
Okay,
That
so
if
it
it
has
is
to
their
be
turn to triumph,
turn by turn
they
thing.
do not deserve
Oh,
joy
I
of
see
victory.
where he's getting the turn by turn statement from. All right then.
All right. Okay, Ms. Nelson, let me hear you. So,
We apologize for that statement.
Yes,
Let's-
yes.
let's-
So,
let's
so
move on.
No, I know him very well. That's
You know
his
him?
character.
No,
You know
please.
him?
So
Let's move on.
I'm home and dry with him. So I
All
have
right,
no.
okay.
You don't need to apologize. I accept
move
it.
on.
I know his character. That's the way he behaves.
Okay. So let's still look at the president's speech. One would have thought that he would have.
I don't even know your guest in the studio. He happens to know me very well.
So, Mr. Nelson, here is the scenario, right? There were some other things we expected the president to talk about. Insecurity, which has been plaguing the nation. We thought he would talk about it and how the government intends to flush it out or work against it. Then also, right, harmonization, unity, the religious and ethnic divide that this just completed election was seriously fraught with. Recently, we heard what Obasa said, and of course, what El Rufai said. These are statements that it almost feels like possibly his administration seems to be content with. And so we thought that possibly with this address, he would address that particular aspect and see how he can reiterate that his government is all about inclusivity and that there is no bias, you know, when it comes to either appointment or addressing issues. What do you say to that particular aspect not being part of the speech?
Well, President Bola Tinubu is the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Malam Nasir El-Rufai is not an elected or an appointed member of his cabinet as we speak. Neither is Mr. Mudashiru Obasa. Yes, they are not members of President Tinubu's cabinet, and they were not elected, into President Tinubu's team. President Tinubu carries a mandate, that Nigerians give to him and Kashim Shettima. What President Bola Tinubu has done this morning is to speak on issues surrounding today as Democracy Day. And in doing that, you don't expect him to use the whole day talking about every sector of the...
But Mudashiru is the president's ally. They're friends, sort of. And then the same camp.
The president and Mr. Mudashiru Obasa, they can even be of the same parents. But don't forget, Mr. Mudashiru Obasa is an elected representative of the people. And if the people have elected him, it means the people have entrusted their mandate into his hands. And the people have trust that he has the ability to reason based on whatever
Did you hear what he said?
No, hold on. President Tinubu does not have control over Mudashiru Obasa. Mudashiru Obasa has been elected as the Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly. So Mudashiru Obasa is the head of an arm of government. Mudashiru Obasa, as we speak, is an adult.
So let me ask you a question.
Yes.
The House of Reps of either of an APC-controlled government, are you saying that they're not on the same tone? Will Mudashiru Obasa be saying something that is different from what President Bola Tinubu's government represents?
We also do know that he is the moral leader of the party.
Yes, he's the moral leader of the party. But don't forget, on being elected, your toga as a party man is put under the table. Mudashiru Obasa, in making that statement, made that statement as the speaker of an arm of government, not as a member of APC.
Do you know what Obasa said?
Well, that's a discussion for another day.
No. I would like to just...
Okay, the issue Obasa raised in that statement is a topical issue. Except if you want to run away from the fact. You remember the Umuleni Abuleni issue? You remember the Tivu Jukun war? Hold on. You remember the Zango Kataf? The issue of indigenous and settlers has been a recurring decimal in our politics.
The question is, do you like the statement he made?
Absolutely.
So you're really
yes, but the context of the statement is what we are waiting for. There's a need to...
The content of the statement is already out.
The content of the bill.
Okay.
It's going to be a bill. Obasa's statement does not translate into law. The House has to pass the bill. And don't forget, the House is not people by only one political party.
So are you saying what he said is not in tandem with what the House already has in mind? Because nobody disputed the statement he made.
Because I'm not sure the House has sat to discuss it. That statement from Honorable Mudashiru Obasa could have been a statement that he garnered from his own constituency, and he's going to table it as a private bill. But as the speaker, he's using his office to make that statement. So it is not for him to bring that statement in. Hold on, just a minute.
Okay.
Hold on, let us be clear. People watching us want to be educated. I'm not sure we are here for a debate. The statement by Mudashiru Obasa has to come in form of a bill if he's serious about it. And that bill has to be debated in the House. There will be a public hearing. Then the bill will be passed. Then it will be sent to the Mr. Governor. It has to be looked at if the contents of the bill is in any way a contravention of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is the ground norm. And if he doesn't do that, after looking through all those, the governor can assent. So if Mr. Mudashiru Obasa, as a legislator representing Agege constituency, one, has made a statement. I come from that constituency.
So you agree with the statement he made?
Absolutely.
Remember that constituency is a combination of several ethnic groups.
Absolutely.
And so you agree. You're representing a constituency of several ethnic groups.
Yes.
And you make a statement that seems to...
What was the statement? Please come again with this statement.
The statement actually reiterated the fact that laws will be reversible. More of laws that will benefit the indigenes will be more thought for or considered first before any other. It almost seemed like indigenes before citizenship.
Well, you are coming back to where I started from. I told you that the issue of indigenship and citizenship has been a recurring decimal. You remember the Zango-Qatar crisis. You are not new in this country.
Let's come to Barrister
yesterday.
Excuse me, please. Let's come to Barrister Eze Eluche now. As a custodian of Constitution, being a lawyer, let's revisit that statement now made by Chief Obasa. What's your take on that one now? Yes.
Yes, I appreciate the questioning that has gone on, the interview you've had with your guest in the studio. The man has made a statement. What we had expected from Mr. President, perhaps on this day, being the head of the ruling party, which both El Rufai and Mr. Obasa come from, and we know the role El Rufai played in the emergence and success of the president at the elections. There should have just been a short address, a reply, a response, not even from the president himself, from the presidency, from the State House, from his press secretary, distancing the government from the very anachronistic acts of El Rufai and Obasa. This, because we are still in the process of trying to build a nation. When Mr. President and his team keep quiet and such rascal comments emerge from very high-ranking members of his political party and those who played critical roles in his emergence, then it gives a source of worry. What El Rufai said, for instance, was that he had practiced Muslim ticket to dominate the in Kaduna State, and they now saw the emergence of Mr. Tinubu also as a ploy to dominate also at the national level. And you feel that is not, Mr. El Rufai is an ordinary member of the APC, and this is corroborated by what Mr. Obasa has said, that there will be increase in indigenship protection. Mr. Obasa himself does not even realize that he's not an indigene of Lagos State, for goodness sake. He's from Ijebu in Ogun State. But he goes ahead, and the same office, the same presidency, does not deem it fit to respond. Now, guess what? When somebody from some other part of the country makes a comment to protect its own ethnic group, you now see this president and the security agencies running riot and going to arrest, and then it begins to create a pattern that is most worrisome, that gives us goosebumps, and we wonder, are we going to have a repeat of the 8 years of ethnocentric bigotry and the extremist Islamist rulership that we had under Muhammadu Buhari? Because that was what transpired. And we are already seeing the tail signs of it at this onset. Less than 2 weeks into the regime, this government is beginning to toe lines that are very worrisome and scary. Keeping silent when loud-mouthed people like El Rufai make such comments, and also when the Speaker of the Lagos House of Assembly makes such comment, gives a very, very worrisome template of where this
Barrister
Tinubu
Esa,
government
that's
will
basically why we're having this conversation, because we were saying that this was another aspect that the president ought to have addressed. But Obasa made a statement where he talked about the fact that laws will be translated to Yoruba. Laws passed by this house, will be translated to Yoruba. And that literally he said that the APC-controlled legislature plans to employ all legislative instruments to promote indigenes over other tribes, considering the diversity of the ethnic groups that currently reside in Lagos, and considering the February 25 elections and the ethnic, dichotomy that was really fraught with it. Do you think that at this point in time, it's a good talisman for the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu?
I mean, if he wants to translate the laws in Lagos to the indigenous language, he should try to do it in Egun language. The Aworis, the Egun, that is the original settlers of Lagos. Or he can even do it in the Benin language, because that's also the Oba of Lagos told us that his ancestors come from Benin. So, I mean, or any language, but that is not even the issue. You see, the issue really is the bad faith that led to such comments. It is beautiful we should promote indigenous languages. In fact, Nigerian laws prescribe that we should have laws in the major languages if where possible and once the state can finance it. So I don't see any issues with that. But what was the background, the underlying circumstances that gave rise to such comments? And there is even more worry because earlier during the campaigns between the presidential elections and the state governorship elections, Mr. President had said that there are some people who come into Lagos as 12-year-olds without anything, and then suddenly they start buying up land and start becoming something else. These are when you join these dots together, and we should begin to join those dots.
All right.
It gives us a very worrisome sign. That was akin to what Buhari said, that there were some 5%. He got some states gave him 5%, and others gave him 95%, and you can't expect him to treat people the same way. And we saw Buhari proceed in a most vindictive and terrible way to treat those that gave him 5%. So the noise being made, or the effort being made, advocacy being made to urge Mr. President that look, the era of campaigns is over.
Let's come to you now,
President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Okay.
All right. So now, are you also of the opinion that we might be seeing a time where tribalism will play a major role as against nationhood in this administration?
The truth of the matter is that tribalism,
with appointments of people from the same ethnic group, should we foresee that playing out again?
No, absolutely not. The president was sworn into office with the Constitution, and the Constitution makes some prescriptions about appointments. For 8 years, one of the baggage former President Muhammadu Buhari carried was being labeled somebody who was going to Fulanize and Islamize Nigeria. And for 8 solid years, I've been asking my friends, I've even put it on my social media handles, that please, can anybody tell me a street that was Fulanized or Islamized for 8 years? And you heard people say, President Muhammadu Buhari hated the Southeasterners. Go and read the comments of Governor David Umahi. Go and read the comments of Governor Opuzodinma.
Former President Muhammadu Buhari called the Southeasterners a dot nation. Was that not condescending?
Go and look at the second Niger bridge and other road infrastructure. He bequeathed that region of the country. And when the 100 billion naira Sukuk bond loan was sourced, go and check the details from the Federal Ministry of Works website, how that money was shared between the 6 geopolitical zones. I agree that the issue about tribalism is a fact, is a reality, except we want to play the ostrich. But the fact remains that the president knows very well that there is a constitution that he has sworn oath to abide. And coming from the background that he has come from, as a Democrat par excellence, as somebody who was in the trenches, who played a leading role in exiting military from our political life, I'm sure you and I know very well that the president will not do anything that will violate the constitution. Just like President Mohamed, because a lot of people were saying, he appointed this as the chief of staff, he appointed, and we were like, look, those are not, statutory appointment. Those are appointments. Those are
All
his
right, then.
personal aides.
All right.
And the law gives him the right to appoint whoever he feels that.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Nelson Ekujimi, public affairs analyst. We have to let you go now.
Thank you very
Because
much
you
for
do
having me.
understand that you have some
Other
other things to attend
appointments.
to.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll stay with Barrister Eze Eluchie now. Let's come back to you, Barrister. Now we're going to talk about the issue of freedom of the press, and we saw in the last administration that there was some sort of stifling of the press with the ban on social media, and are we going to see some sort of control of the press in this administration from what you can see so far?
I believe this is still early days, and I hope very much that this government will not toe the lines the last administration was taking in regards to trying to stifle the press. But my worry with that is that this administration has been doing. In fact, it's like it said it will build upon the records, the achievements of the Buhari administration, and it's already doing that. It's started by saying it will remove the fuel subsidy, and it has done that. It has, it's making comments that show it as a direct offshoot of the Buhari regime. I hope that it doesn't go that direction, because it will crystallize the fears of people that we are back. We need to go back to the trenches. We need to go back to talking about democracy. That what we might be celebrating today might just be a figment of our imagination, that we do not have democracy in place. Like I said from the onset, democracy is not just an event. Democracy is a process where people part of this process. If they are not, no matter what you call yourself, you are not a democracy.
All right, Barrister, we also have the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you very well.
All right, so Atiku has actually declared that our democracy is in bondage. Is in total, is a contrast to what President Bola Tinubu talked about this morning, while he was addressing the nation on the beauty of our democracy. But Atiku literally is reiterating that, the democracy that we're practicing is in bondage despite the end of military administration in 1999. Would you toe your line of thought along with what, the principal of the PDP is actually saying?
Now, let me give you critical examples.
Okay.
If you were somebody from a state where the INEC results show something different from what your votes, what you counted in your polling booths, you will feel that democracy is in bondage, and that it was better perhaps even during the military era. One area where it is actually far better during the military era could be in the area of the judiciary, the justice sector. Under the military era, when Gani Fawehinmi was taking up personal interest, public interest litigations, the court did not deny the Gani Fawehinmi access, or did not levy heavy fines on him. But under our so-called democracy, when you even go to court to approach the court to interpret sections of the Constitution for you, the court will end up not telling you don't have locus, and subsequently levying criminal or very vindictive fines, 20 million, 10 million against you, trying to ensure that nobody accesses the court to interpret the Constitution. So you wonder, in that instance, what the presidential candidate of the PDP said is true. Because if you do not have access to go to the courts, if the courts have said, okay, don't come to us, because if you come to us, we will levy a heavy fine on you, you will begin to realize that in truth, our so-called democracy is in bondage. And perhaps life was far better during the military regime than it is now. Even TV stations, when you are talking on TV stations, they get worried. They even want to yank you off or stop your communication once they feel you are saying something that the NCC will come against you and levy fines on you or try to close you. So under that dispensation, we are truly in bondage. Bondage is not only when your hands are tied or when you are in prison. When you cannot talk freely, when you cannot move around freely, you are in bondage. And for most Nigerians, we are in bondage because we cannot move freely from one state to the other, or from one even town to the other. We cannot even approach the courts freely because we fear that the courts will levy sanctions on us. So what else? Is this democracy not in bondage? Yes, it is in bondage.
So in essence, now I would have expected the president in his speech to talk a lot more about as you know, when he spoke about subsidy removal, I would have expected him to talk more about, the palliatives. Yes, he did speak about the palliatives, but I would have expected him to talk about the crushing oil thieves, measures that he would put in place to crush oil thieves. You know, he did say that some time back, and also the monies that have been set aside for subsidy that were mismanaged. How does his administration intend to go after those that mismanaged
That's why
those funds?
you remember when we were talking, I was saying there are some key issues we expected to hear the president address in his what do you call it, Democracy Day speech, which were pertinent for Nigerians to actually hear from him. You've had controversial persons occupying sensitive positions. We want to hear you tell us what you intend to do. For example, the Hadi Sirika of Aviation, Mele Kyari of NNPC. These are individuals that are suspects in how things have been carried out, while they are in charge. So that's basically what I was hammering on these things.
All right then. Well, we've reconnected with our guest, Barrister Eze Eluche. Yes, the question I asked earlier was on the fact that should we? Okay, well.
He's out again.
He's out again.
Okay. So like I was saying, so these were the issues. And then one core thing as well was, again, remember when Cyril talked about it this morning as to the point of national healing. The ethnic divide has become so potent. Literally, you can taste the burn at the tip of your tongue. And it hurts because Nigeria has actually thrived. We've been able to stay together, harmonize together, and outgrow this particular thing that has always kept us at bay. But then coming back again, people have intermingled, right? Our society has moved on. But this particular scenario developing, you begin to hear statements from certain people that, denigrates or deteriorates the quality of our nationhood. This is something I expected him to have also addressed.
Oh, well, once again, we hear that our guest is back on with us, Barrister Eze Eluche. Now, we'll talk about, this conversation that we just had in the studio. But before that, I was asking a question. When we talk about gains of democracy now.
Yes, I am.
Should we now say that freedom of the press as a gain of democracy has not been enjoyed by Nigerians? Freedom of expression, I beg your pardon. Freedom of expression, in line with what you were saying earlier, can we say that Nigerians have not really enjoyed?
Yes, I very much agree with the comments made by the PDP presidential candidates that democracy is in bondage. Most TV stations and radio stations are very wary of people coming on air and airing their own views. So how else do you measure freedoms when people are afraid to express themselves or talk?
All right then. We've been having network glitches here, and we must thank you, Barrister Eze Eluche, for staying with us. We do apologize for the glitch in the network. There's been this delay between what we say and when you hear us, but we honestly apologize and we thank you for coming on the program with us, albeit virtually. Thank you very much, Barrister Eze Eluche. All right, let's go on to business now. Going straight into business, the immediate past Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, has accused the chairman of the House of Representatives Committee of Aviation, Noli Minaji, of demanding 5% stake in the controversial and proposed national carrier, Nigeria Air. Now, Sirika made the accusation during an interview with a television station on Sunday. And he also, we do know that earlier, Naji had declared Nigeria Air as a fraudulent deal after stakeholders in the project, appeared. Now, before then, the managing director of Nigeria Air, Dayo Olumide, while facing inquiries by lawmakers on the project, revealed that the aircraft that landed at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, on May 26, 2023, was chartered from Ethiopian Airline. Now, Sirika has also disclosed that less than 3 billion naira was spent on Nigeria Air. Less than 3 billion naira, I reiterate. All right. In a swift reaction, Naji described Sirika's allegations as lies, adding that the ex-minister is a drowning man who will hold on to anything to survive. So there's a back and forth now. Is this what we need? Or do we need arrests and interrogation and proper questioning? I don't know. I think that there should be an order, all right, that the ex-minister of aviation should be brought in for questioning.
Serious questioning.
Not to send us a report from his bedroom, say, oh, my Nigeria story, as printed on some of the dailies. There should be proper questioning as to what went down. Exactly. We don't need this distraction.
And how the funds that were appropriated to the aviation ministry or industry rather was used, because there were contravening reports on a lot of monies being funneled to the wrong channels, and the brazenness with which he carried out some of his.
Oh, it's a lie. Oh no, I didn't say that. Oh no, that's not what we need right now. Yes. That's not what we need right now. Oh well, let's go on to another business story now. Experts in the building industry have stated that the recent interest rate hike by the Central Bank of Nigeria was detrimental to developers and the country's mortgage system. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria last week increased the benchmark interest rate by 50 basis points to 18.5%. The MPC blamed high energy costs and challenges around the supply chain, among others, which are beyond the reach of the CBN for the rising inflation in the country. Now, it explained that the current trend in price development would continue to be monitored by the bank with greater collaboration with fiscal authority to address the drivers of inflation. Meanwhile, stakeholders in the real estate sector said CBN's decision to raise interest rates would be counterproductive. The executive secretary of the Association of Housing Corporation of Nigeria, Toye Eniola, said higher interest rates on loans would hamper housing development. So these are the times that we're in. Well, that's it on business. We'll take a little break now. When we come back, Kayla Abraham will join us for entertainment and also trending stories. All right, stay with us. We'll be back in a bit.